Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is an old school video. If you'll notice it, you'll see my old backdrop here in Los Angeles. I'm using my old equipment. Kind of back in California for a couple of weeks, probably be back in Arizona again soon. But now that I'm here, back with my old equipment, I decided I'd make a topical video, also like the ones I used to make a lot. And it concerns the idea that what we think of as heaven is not really what most people want. And I mean the conceptualization of heaven that we hear about, this perfect existence upon death of the physical body. And that is, I think, the most influential characteristic behind what we understand as the real afterlife, which we talk about here, which we can experience through out-of-body states and near-death experiences and things like that. So what do I mean by this? Why is it that the heaven that we think of, why would that not be satisfying like we imagine it to be? And I don't mean just the cliche idea of the cherub, as you can see in the picture. Actually, it's this way, right? The picture down this way of the cherub sleeping on the cloud. I don't even mean that cliche so much as I mean this idea of perfection. The idea that we want to live in a perfect reality. There's a lot of reasons to think twice about that, and I'm going to use an analogy that I cooked up, and it involves video games. If you've never played a video game in your life, don't worry about it, just bear with me, because I think this is one of the best ways to understand a little bit about human psychology and what things provide meaning, satisfaction, even fun and adventure versus what things we inherently find unsatisfying, as a way to reevaluate your perspective about what an idealized state of existence might be like. Before we continue with this subject, though, go down, hit that subscribe button, like this video, share it. Helps keep this channel, these podcasts, these discussions going. You can also sign up as a patron at the patreon.com/Afterlife Topics. You can join at the $30 level and you get unlimited astral projection coaching with me. I'll always work with my patrons one-on-one whenever they need to talk to me about their experiences or to help them have their first experiences, as well as the twice-a-week classes that we also run here. In the meantime, there's also the Afterlife Topics Metaphysics group on MeWe, on Facebook, here on YouTube, on Reddit, probably soon on Discord. So stay in touch for updates, and you should join some of those communities while you're at it to discuss these topics that we go over on the show, so you can hear other perspectives as well. Okay, that said, let's go ahead and begin talking about this. What is this analogy using video games, and why is it so applicable? So when I was young, like when I was adolescent, early teens, back in the very early 2000s, out in the desert on this really not so good dial-up connection, one of my favorite things were computer games, online multiplayer computer games. This was the creation of a genre of computer game, a genre of video game, known as the massively multiplayer online role-playing game, or MMORPG. So this was the height of that genre. And what this was an idea by game developers near the inception of the internet, going global 20 years ago. That is to say, people having access to higher speed internet, DSL, and things like that, to create online games where everybody can play at the same time. So instead of like playing Quake with 6 of your friends, you could be playing with 2,000 other people, all with their unique identities and characters, moving around a virtual world. And then people who are big fans of fantasy gaming, science fiction gaming, they thought this would be the way that we could get players together to have like real adventures that that people have never experienced before. So there were a lot of games back then that I played. You had EverQuest, you had Ultima, you had Star Wars Galaxies, there was a game called RuneScape that I think was one of the very popular ones. Now all these games had something in common, which is that they were very difficult games. So the game designers designed a concept where these games were too difficult to play by yourself. So you're going to be thrown into a world with thousands of other people playing at the same time, but there's no way you can succeed unless you meet up with other players as well. So when you're running around going solo, it's very difficult. You pretty much need to team up with people. And to give you an example, you begin the game in one part of the map in this town, and you have friends, or you want to try to get to this other city, but between you and this city is like a big mountain pass and a dungeon, and it's really treacherous, really dangerous. So like one of my early memories is I had to get all these other players together, like we're going to try to get through the mountain pass and get to the other city together. And so we did that, and it was very treacherous, and most of us died along the way. Now, these games also had strict death penalties, so you could die in the game and lose days, if not weeks, of work. So players were terrified of dying and losing their character's equipment, losing their experience. So it was very tense. Trying to get through that mountain pass, trying to get to the other town, was a high adrenaline experience, and that's saying something because it's not easy to make a high adrenaline experience from playing video games, but they found that way to do it. But it involved basically creating adventures with other players. Now, I have many stories, many fun things I did at that age with those games during what they called the height of the online role-playing game experience. Now, something happened. What happened is with those particular games, they were extremely popular, but there was a lot of people complaining about it because they went through the mountain pass to get to the other town, and their character did die, and they lost so much of their work, and then they write these angry letters, I'm unsubscribing from your game because it's too difficult, it's too unforgiving, it's, too frustrating to die, lose all of my work, or it's too difficult to get ahead. It takes me this long period of time to get my character advanced, and I don't have the ability to do that. I want to play something easier. So by around the mid-2000s, a lot of game designers were like, we're losing subscribers, so we need to do something about this. We need to fix these games. So they began listening to all these people complaining, and they said, okay, we're going to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it so if you die, there's no consequences. You can just very easily make it across the mountain pass and get to the other town now. You can just teleport there. You click on a magical book, and it'll just take you right to the other city. Or we're going to make it so that you can play by yourself and get ahead just as much as if you're playing with other players. One game that really took this advice was Blizzard, because they made the game World of Warcraft, which started out as like a little bit more difficult, more of an open world adventure game. And then they began implementing all that stuff as well, so they gradually made it easier and easier and easier. So what happened? As this happened, more people actually came back to the games, more people began subscribing, and it blew up. World of Warcraft became one of the top games of all time, one of the most profitable games of all time. Everyone was playing these games, and they all thought, yep, the key to making these games is to make it easy, don't make it as challenging, give players the options to do whatever they want, and to play by themselves. Don't make it so they have to group and team up with other players. And that way it's inclusive for everyone's play styles, and this will attract the most subscribers. And everything seemed great. Now, obviously, there's more to the story. What happened? By the late 2000s into the early 2010s, well, this strategy began to backfire. And what happened is, with many of these games, they began losing more subscribers than they were losing originally, with the original game design that was so difficult and required so much teamwork, and required the ability to deal with much more adversity. These games were losing subscribers, and the developers didn't know what to do. Now there was also all these new games using that same model, trying to make a buck. So you had, I'm thinking off the top of my head, like Terra or Elder Scrolls Online, all of these other games using this kind of World of Warcraft model. So it's like very inclusive, it's not very challenging. What players were discovering was these games were not that good playing solo. Like, you should be better off playing a solo, single player game than a kind of, a game that's not very good with other people running around you never talk to, you never do anything with them. They began to find that the games were these hollow experiences. So they didn't have that adversity anymore. So, you play the game and you didn't really feel like you were accomplishing anything. You were not, it was just like playing any other game. You may as well be playing solitaire on your computer. You must be playing backgammon. But at least those games, if you're playing with someone else, you can have some memorable experiences. At least when you're playing Monopoly on the living room floor, you're having memorable experiences. So they made all these MMORPGs into these games that were basically single player experiences written into a multiplayer framework. So what happened? Lots of people quit these games. That became the MMORPG slump. So that this genre of game has fallen off into obscurity now in 2021. I mean, many people still play them. The companies had to figure out a way to bring the players back. So what did they do? They re-released their games using the old rule sets, using the high level of challenge, the adversity, having to deal with people dying potentially, the danger, all of that. They brought it all back, and what happened? Again, these companies, their games became the most popular games in the PC gaming, Mac gaming markets. So EverQuest re-released their original playstyle. Huge. World of Warcraft did the same thing. Huge. These are some of the most popular games on the PC today, are these classic rule sets. What the heck happened? Why did everyone complain about those games, and then everyone quit when the game developers implemented the changes that they wanted, and then the only way they brought all the players back again was to bring back those old style of games? What happened? How does this relate to heaven and an afterlife? Well, it really does relate a lot, because basically people were only getting meaning, excitement, adventure, and fun out of these imperfect situations. The more people wanted a perfect environment where they say, you know what, it's too difficult to get across the mountain pass and get to the village, so I just want to be able to click there and go there immediately. It's too difficult having to work hard to earn all my equipment. I just want to make it easy so I can kill 10 monsters and get all my equipment and all the artifacts and treasure I want. You know what, it's too difficult to go up in levels. I want to get experience really quickly. It's too difficult to lose any work I do or have a penalty if I die or if I lose the game. I just want to make it all penalty free. The more people were implementing that, the more the game lost meaning, it lost excitement, it lost adventure, it lost interest. And in people, initially there was a big wave. People wanted those games. They wanted to spoil themselves and think, oh good, I can just have all this handed to me. And what happened? People got bored very, very fast. The old rule sets that had so much adversity and challenge, that were not these perfect places, that's where all the fun and adventure and memories happened. You can talk to anyone from that era who used to play those games. They can talk about these massive quests that would happen. The designers actually came up with a terminology for this, and it was, I think it was like user originated content. So it's the idea that the users play the game, and like organic things happen in that world, which creates fun and adventure. Like, for example, let's say you're playing on a game that has player versus player combat. You're trying to get across the mountain pass, and then the other players who are bandits come, and then they hold you hostage. And then some other players have to come and rescue you from those other players who are holding you hostage, and they come and slay the bandits, and they get all of your equipment back, and then you can continue on the quest to get to the other city, and then you finally do, and then all the players, they put together like a parade or like an event inside the city. You see what I mean? It's self-originating content. People got so immersed into those games that they were creating like their whole world. And as soon as they took all that adversity and they took all the challenge away, the games fizzled out, became boring and not very fun. Well, this is the same thing we see in the subject: afterlife studies, life after death, religion. The same concept happening. You hear about people's expectations of an afterlife. People hear my stories about, for example, astral projection, and then they complain about it. They say, Cyrus, this isn't the heaven I imagined. You said you were in an astral urban area, or you were in some place that was less than this perfect idealized vision of heaven that I have in my mind. And so this can't be right, because the other side has to be perfect. There shouldn't be any adversity. There shouldn't be any challenge. Everyone should be able to get anything they want, anytime they want, immediately. And you should have all the keys to the castle. Everything is just given to you. That's heaven. That's paradise. Or is it? What happens if you are in a situation like that? If our human psychology stays even partially the same, you go into an environment like that, what do you want to do? You go there just like when all those players joined those games after they made perfect games and they got rid of all the adversity and all the challenge. People came back for a while, enjoyed it because, oh look, finally I can go across the mountain pass and do these things I couldn't do before. Yay! And then what happened? They all quit. Is that what happens in this case? People go to the other side and they're like, okay, anything I want is just handed to me. I don't really have to talk to anyone else or do anything else. I can just indulge in my fantasies all day, but I don't have to work for them, and there's not much meaning associated with it. Okay. What happens? Maybe they reincarnate to come back here. So this is why it's so important to grasp the concept of the astral earth plane. Places that are similar to this world, places that are still challenging, places that are not perfect, places that are kind of gritty, places where our expectations are not met, where there is unpredictability, where there is some chaos, where it's not always cut and dry, known what's going to happen one moment to the next, where maybe there is some type of danger, because it seems like the human soul needs all of these things to thrive, to be able to have new experiences, to have adventure, to be able to bond with other people. Those old games, you made tons of friends playing them. People that met their wives and husbands on those games because they bonded through experiencing that adversity. Trying to get across the mountain pass becomes a story that they're still telling each other. Like, how did mom and dad meet? They met playing a game, going through a treacherous snowy pass with orcs and goblins chasing after them and players hunting them down. They met on this grand adventure. People still have memories of those experiences that they like so much because of that adversity. As soon as you replace that adversity or challenge with convenience, then the experience is taken away. So is it really so bad if something isn't perfect? I would wager that realms that people make that are designed to be, quote, perfect, souls are going to get tired of that very quickly. So those kind of urban environments that I've talked about being in that are maybe not as idyllic and beautiful as people's expectations are, maybe that is where the older souls go to. Maybe this high-level heavenly, palace-like white marble floors, and all the food tastes amazing, and the air is perfumed, and it's perpetually summertime. Maybe the older souls get bored of that pretty quickly. Maybe they go to the quote lower environment, because that's where the growth, learning, bonding, fun, adventure, and excitement all is. Just like with the game analogy, everyone played that game when they were younger, they complained about it, they ruined it, and then once these players were all older, in their 20s and 30s, they all came back to it when they got older, more mature, and they had more maturity to appreciate what it is that they had. So that's my theory about why we need these lower level astral worlds, also so that we don't have to necessarily reincarnate and come back into this nightmare prison planet. Because this is a different end of the spectrum. This world has too much adversity, too many problems. There was one game, I think it was called Mortal Online, like some game out of it came out like Finland or Denmark. And I tried playing this game, and it was so difficult, and it had so much adversity. Like, you just walk outside of town, and players gang up on you, and you're dead instantly. You lose all your stuff. I couldn't play that game more than like a couple days because it was just ridiculous. It was too much BS. And that's the idea of going toward one end of the extremes. But it's kind of like what this world is. This world is that failed MMO that took it too far. It's too extreme. It's too crazy here. But there is that perfect middle ground that has allowed game designers to be so successful. But it's that same concept when it comes to designing the life that we can have on the other side. And what it is, the kinds of places that we may ultimately want to inhabit. And this is that balancing act that we have to think about. So that's my main points about this. But write in the comments down below what you think of this concept and how you think you should balance your experiences in the other side this way, if you think it's necessary to balance this at all. So as always, this is Afterlife Topics. You pick up books of mine like Understanding Life After Death, The Afterlife and Beyond over at afterlifetopics.com. In the meantime, be sure to check out all of the many other videos on this channel. There's so many videos covering topics like this one. So if you like this video, you can find many more like it. All right, everybody, this is Cyrus. I'll catch you all on the next video.